What if the celestial body we gaze at every night holds secrets that defy our understanding, mysteries that ancient civilizations knew without telescopes, and anomalies modern science still struggles to explain? Every night, an object hangs above us, one we consider the most studied in space. We know its diameter, mass, distance, and even the chemical composition of its dust. Yet, the more data instruments collect, the longer the list of questions science cannot answer becomes. The moon is too large for its planet, too light for its size, and too precisely positioned in orbit for all of it to be mere coincidence. Moreover, ancient civilizations, lacking telescopes, somehow knew things about it that we only confirmed in the 20th century. Let's begin with a fact you can verify right now by simply looking up at the sky. The sun's diameter is roughly 400 times greater than the moon's, and the distance from Earth to the sun is also approximately 400 times greater than the distance to the moon. These two entirely different numbers, size and distance, result in the same apparent disk in our sky. This is precisely why, during a total solar eclipse, the moon perfectly obscures the sun, neither more nor less, leaving only the thinnest halo of the corona. No other planet in our solar system exhibits such a precise alignment. Not Jupiter with its numerous moons, nor Saturn with its magnificent rings. Astronomers label this a coincidence, but coincidences have an expiry date. The moon drifts away from Earth by approximately 3.8 centimeters each year. This means we are living within a tiny temporal window when this perfect alignment occurs. Millions of years ago, the moon was too close, completely eclipsing the sun with excess. In hundreds of millions of years, it will be too distant to ever fully cover the sun again. Out of Earth's entire 5 billion year history, the ratio of sizes is ideal right now. Precisely now, when intelligent beings exist on the planet, capable of observing and comprehending this phenomenon. Next, let's consider a second peculiarity that any child notices, but adults inexplicably cease to ponder. The moon always presents the same face to Earth. We observe the identical patterns of Maria and craters every single night, and this has been the case throughout human history. Science attributes this to tidal locking, where a planet's gravity gradually synchronizes a satellite's axial rotation with its orbital period. This phenomenon isn't unique. Many moons in our solar system are tidally locked to their host planets. What is unique, however, is something else entirely. The moon's center of mass does not coincide with its geometric center. It's shifted towards Earth. Imagine the moon as a pear, with its heavier end perpetually pulled towards us. Then, in 1968, when satellites began mapping the lunar gravitational field, they discovered Mascons, gigantic concentrations of heavy mass beneath the surface of the lunar Maria. These Mascons create powerful gravitational anomalies, causing satellites flying overhead to accelerate and deviate from their paths. Officially, Mascons are explained as solidified mantle material that rose after asteroid impacts, but why are they almost exclusively concentrated on the near side, with hardly any on the far side? The moon's far side, first photographed by the Soviet probe Luna 3 in 1959, proved to be strikingly different from the near side. It has almost no dark Maria, but is instead heavily pockmarked with craters. On November 20th, 1969, an event occurred that still defies a definitive explanation. The spent ascent stage of the Apollo 12 lunar module was deliberately crashed onto the lunar surface. The impact was carefully planned, with a seismometer, left by the astronauts, already positioned on the surface. When the module struck the ground, the moon began to vibrate. It reverberated for over 55 minutes. The amplitude of these oscillations initially increased, peaking at the 8-minute mark, before slowly diminishing. Maurice Ewing, head of the Institute for Geophysics, appeared on the evening news and uttered a phrase that would be quoted for decades. The result is so unusual that I would prefer not to attempt to interpret it. The Apollo 13 crew later replicated the experiment, increasing the impact force. This time, the moon vibrated for 3 hours and 20 minutes, with seismic waves propagating 40 kilometers deep. On Earth, earthquake vibrations subside within minutes because our planet is dense and heterogeneous, causing waves to dissipate quickly. The moon, however, behaved like an enormous bell or a hollow metallic sphere. Gordon MacDonald of NASA had even stated in 1962, "If astronomical data are to be believed, the interior of the moon is more likely to be hollow than homogeneous." The moon's average density is 3.34 grams per cubic centimeter, while Earth's is 5.51. The moon is 40% lighter, despite both bodies supposedly forming from the same material. Official science, of course, rejects the hollow moon idea, attributing the vibrations to a dry, rigid crust. Yet, even skeptics concede that the structure of our satellite remains incompletely understood. NASA is preparing the Farside CSU mission, slated for a 2026 launch, with the goal of deploying seismometers on the far side to finally probe the moon's depths. What do you think they will discover there? Confirmation of the conventional model, or a surprise no one is prepared for? Let us now set aside physics and delve into humanity's most ancient texts. Aristotle, in his works, describes the inhabitants of Arcadia, a people called the Pelasgians. He refers to them as proselenes, which in Greek means pre-lunar, those who lived before the moon. He explicitly states that the Pelasgians inhabited Arcadia during a time when the moon did not yet exist in the sky. Plutarch, in his Moralia, mentions the followers of Evander, descendants of the Arcadians, as pre-lunar people. Ovid writes, "The Arcadians are said to have possessed their land before the birth of Jupiter, and the people are older than the moon." Apollonius of Rhodes describes a time when not all celestial bodies were in the sky. The only people then were the Arcadians, who ate acorns before the moon existed. This isn't the wild fantasy of a single author. These are at least 6 ancient sources, separated by centuries, all independently recording the same tradition of a time without a moon. But Greece isn't the only place where this memory persists. On the other side of the planet, in Colombia, the Muisca, Chibcha tribe preserves an oral tradition that begins with the words, "In the most distant times, when the moon was not yet in the heavens." Alexander von Humboldt, traveling through British Guiana in 1820, recorded a similar account from local indigenous people, whose ancestors supposedly lived on that land before the moon appeared in the sky. In Bolivia, on a wall in the Calasasaya courtyard of Tiwanaku, researcher Hans Bellamy discovered symbols he interpreted as an astronomical record. According to his decipherment, before the moon appeared in Earth's orbit, Earth rotated more slowly, and a year lasted only 290 days. If we allow for the possibility that these traditions reflect real events, a question arises that official science prefers not to ask. Where, then, did the moon come from? The leading modern theory posits that 4.5 billion years ago, a colossal collision occurred. An object the size of Mars, named Theia, slammed into the young Earth. The impact was so powerful that it ejected a cloud of debris into space, from which the moon subsequently coalesced. This hypothesis is elegant, but it has a critical weakness. The isotopic composition of lunar rocks is almost identical to Earth's. Data from the Apollo program revealed that the titanium isotope ratios in lunar samples match those found on Earth. If the moon were composed half of material from a foreign body like Theia, its isotopic composition should differ significantly. This implies either that Theia was an exact chemical duplicate of Earth, which is exceedingly improbable, or that the theory requires substantial revision. The Sumerians, one of the most ancient civilizations, worshipped the moon god Nana, whose name translates as Lord of the Sky. Notably, it was the moon god, not the sun god, who was considered one of the supreme deities in Sumer. Between 2600 and 2400 BCE, he was revered as the father of the gods. Nana was believed to be the creator of all things, and his cult spread far beyond his home city of Ur. The Sumerians depicted him traveling across the sky in a crescent boat. The Egyptians, too, had several lunar gods. Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, wore a lunar disk on his head and was credited with creating the calendar. Khonsu, the god of time, was believed by Egyptians to govern the changing lunar phases and influence fertility. The most ancient lunar god, Ea, lent his name to an entire dynasty of pharaohs, with Ahmose meaning born of Ea. Why was the moon, rather than the sun, central to the religions of the earliest civilizations? The sun provides warmth, light, and harvests. It is, ostensibly, more vital for daily life. Yet, The first calendars were lunar, the first deities were lunar, and the first temples were built in honor of the night luminary. It is as if the ancients knew something about the moon that made it more significant than the day star. Here's a detail that rarely surfaces in documentaries. In the mythologies of dozens of cultures worldwide, the moon is linked not with light or beauty, but with death and resurrection. Among Australian Aborigines, Siberian shamans, and indigenous peoples of the Americas, the same motif recurs. The moon dies each month and is reborn anew. The ancients believed that humans too once died and were reborn like the moon, but later lost this gift. What if these myths reflect not poetic fantasy, but the observation of a real cycle? A cycle connected to the moon's appearance in orbit and the changes it brought to our planet. Do you believe our ancestors could have truly witnessed the moon's arrival in the sky, or is this merely mythology? Let's return to facts that can be touched and placed under a microscope. In 2024, the Chinese Chang'e 6 mission made history by delivering soil samples from the far side of the moon to Earth. These 1935 grams of rock came from the Apollo crater within the immense South Pole Aitken Basin. When scientists analyzed these samples, they uncovered a magnetic anomaly that fits no existing model. The moon's magnetic field sharply weakened 3.1 billion years ago. Then, 300 million years later, it suddenly strengthened again. On Earth, the magnetic field is generated by the rotation of a liquid iron core, and it changes smoothly, gradually. On the moon, however, it was a sudden jump, as if someone switched off a generator and then restarted it. It was officially believed that the lunar magnetic field only waned as its core cooled. These new data contradict that assumption, and scientists currently cannot explain what caused this renewed strengthening. Yet, the moon's magnetic field directly influenced how solar wind interacted with its surface and, indirectly, conditions on Earth. There's something else almost nobody talks about. In the lunar soil brought back by the Apollo missions, silicate glass spherules were discovered. Tiny, perfectly formed spherical beads ranging in diameter from fractions of a micrometer to half a millimeter. Such particles do not naturally occur on Earth. They form only under conditions of instantaneous heating to 1000 degrees Celsius, followed by rapid cooling in a vacuum. Every meteorite impact transforms lunar dust into these microscopic beads, which have accumulated in the soil for billions of years. But here's the strange part. In a sample returned by Apollo 14, scientists found a tiny inclusion of quartz, feldspar, and zircon. These minerals are perfectly common on Earth, but they should not exist on the moon. The conditions for their formation existed on the young Earth, but, as far as we know, never on the moon. The conclusion drawn by researchers sounds like something from science fiction. This rock fragment was once blasted from Earth's surface by a powerful asteroid impact, flew into space, and landed on the moon. The moon, therefore, preserves fragments of ancient Earth within its dust, fragments that have long since been destroyed by geological processes on Earth itself. This means our satellite acts as a gigantic archive of our planet's early history, perfectly preserved in the vacuum and cold. 4 billion years of information lie literally beneath a layer of gray dust. Perhaps this is precisely why all space agencies worldwide are now rapidly escalating their lunar programs. China, the USA, India, Japan, even private companies. Everyone wants to return to the moon, and they want to do it quickly. Officially, the focus is on resources like helium-3 and establishing bases for Mars missions. But perhaps the true reason is simpler and far grander. The moon holds a record of history that can no longer be read on Earth. Here's another thought-provoking fact. The moon stabilizes Earth's rotational axis. Our planet's tilt of 23.5 degrees is responsible for the predictable change of seasons. Without the moon, according to 1993 models, this tilt would begin to wobble chaotically. The poles could face the sun for half a year, while the equator froze. Mars, which lacks a large moon, provides a direct illustration of this scenario. Its axial tilt has fluctuated between 10 and 60 degrees throughout its history, rendering the planet's climate utterly unsuitable for complex life. The moon acts as a gigantic gravitational stabilizer, making predictable seasons, stable agriculture, and the development of civilization possible on Earth. Furthermore, the moon is a disproportionately enormous satellite for its planet. Earth is only about 81 times more massive than the Moon. In comparison, Mars is 60 million times more massive than its moon, Phobos. No other planet in our solar system exhibits such a mass ratio. Some planetologists propose calling the Earth-Moon system not a planet with a satellite, but rather a double planet. In 2025, data from the Grail mission delivered yet another surprise. The Moon deforms under Earth's gravitational influence more significantly than models predicted. The discrepancy between theory and real-world data proved too substantial to ignore. Earth literally stretches the Moon along the line between them, creating tidal bulges. Analysis revealed that the near side is heated more intensely than the far side, which creates a difference in rock density. The Moon appears to be an asymmetrical body, with one half softer than the other, as if it were deliberately oriented towards Earth with its warmer side. Science explains this through its cooling history, positing that a young, scorching Earth constantly heated one side of the nearby Moon, while the far side froze in the cosmic cold. But if we recall the Mascons, the misalignment of the center of mass, the perfect eclipse, and the vibrations, the picture coalesces into something far greater. No single geologist can fully explain all of this, and the word coincidence simply ceases to apply. In 1970, two Soviet scientists, Mikhail Vasin and Alexander Sherbakov, published an article. In it, they proposed that the Moon is an artificial object, a shell of ultra-strong metal covered by a multi-kilometer layer of rock and dust for thermal protection. They even calculated the age of this ship, arriving at a figure that exceeded the age of the universe, which, understandably, undermined the credibility of their work. The article was justifiably torn to shreds. Many of their conclusions were fantastical, yet some of the questions they posed remain unanswered to this day. Why do lunar craters, regardless of the meteorite's impact angle, have roughly the same depth? It's as if a hard, impenetrable layer beneath the surface prevents them from deepening further. Why does the surface contain titanium, chromium, and zirconium, metals that require immense temperatures for processing and are used in Earth's aerospace industry? Why is lunar soil stronger than scientists anticipated? On the Moon's surface, astronomers since Galileo's time have recorded strange flashes of light, observed colored mists, and inexplicable darkenings in areas where they shouldn't occur. In 1965, NASA even launched a special project, Moonblink, to systematically study these anomalies. The project was quietly closed, and its results never received a clear explanation. We are accustomed to thinking of the Moon as a dead, predictable, and understandable rock. Yet, with each decade of research, the number of anomalies grows, and confidence in our existing models wanes. The ancient Sumerians called their moon god the creator of all existence. The Greeks remembered a time when there was no moon. The Muisca, Chibcha, people preserved a tradition of a sky without the night luminary. Astronomers record magnetic surges that cannot be explained by cooling. Seismologists hear the moon ring like a hollow metallic sphere. And we live in the only moment in the entire history of the solar system when the lunar disk precisely matches the solar disk, all while possessing the consciousness to notice this and ask, why? Perhaps the Moon is not a mystery to be solved, but a message to be read, and the fact that it is addressed to us makes its author far more intriguing than the text itself.